So yeah, so just to go back a year from today, we had just launched our playtest. We did our really nice reveal video with Richard and Scaff and Peter Atkinson up in Seattle, and that was a lot of fun. And the game was basically a prototype at that time, and we started a playtest very early. And back in I think around early April, we had a conversation with everyone here about sort of what our plan was and how we wanted to sort of proceed from April all the way through this August-September timeframe, where we wanted to launch the alpha. And what's been very interesting is, I'm going to do a quick recap of sort of our journey from the launch of the playtest to April, and then go into what we've kind of experienced in the past sort of 6 months-ish window, and what we are going to look at for the rest of this year going into 2025. And then we'll leave some time at the end for Q&A. And obviously, we have an open dialogue with pretty much everyone watching this recording or here who are live. So if there's any questions that you want to follow up with us on, that's absolutely fine too. So with that, what I'll do is I'll launch into a little bit of a recap of what we already covered back through April, so that we have context for what we've been actually doing for the past 5 months, 4 or 5 months at this point, and then what we'll be doing in the future. And then I will tag in John, Richard, and Scaff to talk about the game-specific items as we get to that. So as we mentioned back in April, we sort of talked about our initial playtest results. We had been running the playtest for about 6 months. We had just closed the seed round. We were doing the closed door demos at GDC, which were landing quite well. And just to go through very quickly at the time, what we discussed with you, with everyone here, was the core reason why we launched the playtest that early as we did, even before we had really multiplayer functionality or anything like that, was because we needed answers to these 2 questions, which is this genre of auto battler royales, of blending auto battlers and battle royale, and was that actually going to work, given the fact that we didn't really have any comparables out there. So the 2 questions we really needed to answer was, is this combination that we are putting together, is it engaging? And then the second big bet, obviously, we are taking is on the idea of unique agents, unique superheroes, and all of the itemization and everything that comes with that. Do players actually want that? So at the time that we did our last presentation back in April, we were very excited that once we sort of went out, announced that we existed, that we wanted to do this very early playtest, we got an incredible response in terms of the number of people who wanted to join. We got thousands and thousands of people signing up, sending applications, emails, etc. And we decided to be very conservative in terms of the number of people that we actually let in. It was in the very sort of low hundreds. But the reason for that was because obviously the game was at a very early stage, but we kind of needed to suddenly test out our entire funnel, all the way from sort of acquiring the user, getting them through the door, teaching them the basics of what is this type of game that we are building, all the way to actually getting them to be valuable playtesters and everything that comes with it in terms of churn at that early stage and so on and so forth. But even with all of that, what we found was that about 70% of people who ended up going through the onboarding process ended up becoming long-term users just about after 1 session. And to our delight, the idea of unique agents, which we thought internally that it would be more of like a 50-50 split in terms of the people who would get excited about the idea versus who would be like, wait, why don't we have a full roster of people to pick from, etc. That was overwhelmingly on the side of the fact that people enjoyed having their own agents. And we had all of this large cohort, like self-identified cohort who wanted to play the game, et cetera, et cetera. And we knew that we wanted to, by this time where we are at right now, get to the point where we could transition from a playtest to an alpha, which would for us mean a couple of things, where we could actually guarantee a degree of gameplay content, a degree of gameplay longevity, and with that also start doing some sort of pre-sales to see how our business model and monetization, which is very, very unique, would start working. So that also meant that we would need to put together a product that, even if we are charging a few dollars, that we feel proud to put out there. So we knew that we had this window of about 5 months, possibly 6, to get to the point where we could hit that bar from a product perspective and from a gameplay perspective. And obviously, given the people on our team and who are here with me, that bar is pretty high. So what we then decided to do was, okay, we had 6 months of playtest data. We had started with a prototype, gotten all the way to a multiplayer build, and so on and so forth. And we knew now that if we could put a certain amount of effort, we could bring people on board and really get them engaged, especially via Discord and so on, with the lack of an actual meta progression system. But that is, not a trivial amount of work. It is a fair amount of work to sort of manage that whole pipeline, especially at such an early stage. So the decision that we made at the time was, okay, let's focus on the core game functionality that had to be built and evolved between that Q2 timeframe and this alpha launch timeframe. And instead of trying to bring more people in and engage them in real time, we had gotten the good fortune to identify, a couple hundred people who were super excited about the game and were essentially excited to spend as much time, feedback, energy in kind of almost building the game with us, which we felt incredibly lucky about. So we were like, okay, why don't we strategically grow this community with friends and friends of friends and so on and so forth. But beyond that, really focus on scoping out and implementing those core in-game systems that would give us a complete end-to-end gameplay loop. So while from the launch of the playtest through the end of Q1, early Q2, we were kind of focusing on the entire funnel. We decided to then kind of get laser focused on the early play, regular play loop. And in service of that, we have spent sort of our last 5 to 6 months getting very, very focused on the core features that would get the game to a point where it has at least all those systems in place, if not all the content. And in service of that, the first thing that we had to do really was to get the game stable and performant. And that was no easy task, given the fact that we had implemented a fairly novel backend and architecture to essentially enable the game to run completely on the server side, to essentially have certain guarantees that we wanted to give our players about essentially being able to play the game in perpetuity, things like that. That it wasn't easy for us to necessarily get to a point where the game was sort of both stable and performant, given the massive compute requirements that this game has, and the fact that we are basically working with a stack of very flexible sort of open source a stack of software. So I have to really take my hats off to our team, and especially even a couple of community members who sort of stepped up as formal advisors to the company in terms of getting super focused on how we could create an evolutionary path to go from a point where every, I want to say, third game was crashing or not completing, to a point where we could be at least rock solid with the scope of about 8 to 16 agents per match that we wanted to support at this stage. So it was amazing in terms of just to see how that roadmap came together, and especially with the eye towards, okay, at Gen Con, we're going to have a lot of matches. Like, we would, during our playtest, maybe have 10, 20 matches a day, a little bit more, maybe if there were tournaments. We were expecting that number to be double, or so during the Gen Con timeframe. So we really needed to be able to support that, but also some of the longer term things we needed to do. So it was really amazing to see how that came together, and I'll talk a little bit about the results there, and then some of the core systems in terms of the battle arena map shrinking, which really is core to the gameplay loop and strategy. And as soon as that feature was implemented, the game changed completely, like quite literally. And I sent some kind of amazed emails to Richard and John and Scaff at the time in terms of just the degree of change that came to the gameplay. Skill map, skill collection. I'm going to actually have John and Richard talk a little bit about sort of the evolution of where we are at today in terms of where we've gotten and where we need to get to. And also unique agent generation, which again is hats off to John for some amazing work. If I can give you the scope of the problem that we're dealing with here. Essentially, imagine there is an infinite number of chaos agents with each agent having a unique model. How do you build a piece of software that actually knows, how to render those infinite models there? Obviously, it has to be programmatic, but at the same time, the programmatic nature has to have some really smart logic behind it. And hats off to John and Michal, our front-end lead dev, who just done amazing job this. I'll let John talk a little bit about that also. But then beyond that, some of the things that kind of make the game look not like a prototype and start looking like at least, sort of an indie level game, let alone like the AA, AAA level game that we want it to be by the time it goes to retail. One of the big problems we had to deal with was terrain deformation and collision detection. Again, a big bet that we have made is not to depend completely on a front-end engine like Unity or Unreal or someone, and to basically have the entire game available as a service that can get plugged into today, like obviously PC, but mobile, console, whatever front end might be. But with that also comes some interesting challenges where we can't just use an out-of-the-box pathfinding algorithm that the engine provides, and so on and so forth. So which also means that something like terrain deformation, collision detection, these are not easy problems to solve. But again, I think we've done a really good job of really focusing on what the problem was and coming up with non-obvious, smart, optimized solutions for things like this, which I'm very happy about. And we've written a tech diary if anyone's interested in the details there. And then beyond that, looking at the ability for us to now have an automated trade reward transaction system, which is obviously super key to enabling anything beyond people just buying agents from us, as well as having actual progression systems associated with people's matches. That was a big time coming because we had, again, hats off to community managers who help keep track balances over Discord with bots and things like that. But we really, just needed an actual transaction system, which we now have a very powerful one, which is going to reap a lot of rewards for us. And then moving towards Gen Con, account creation, account management, making that as streamlined as possible to be able to execute our Gen Con plans.
Yeah, it's been really gratifying to see how well this game has been received independent of the skills. I would have anticipated the skills were much more integral, but it seems like it stands on its own. Just the Auto Battler Royale feels like it has legs of its own. That said, I'm still, since day one, have been most excited about the skills. And it took us a while to settle on what would be the most exciting way to present a unique skill set to the players. But we came up with this concept of a skill map. And the map allows you as a player to explore it in different ways each time you play. And this really resonates with me because it feels like the most exciting part of an RPG for me, and I think to some degree for a lot of people, is looking at the characters and seeing their possible progressions and seeing the different ways you can go about it. That's certainly what excited me most in Diablo, and it's why Path of Exile is has the despite its crazy ornate skill chart, has the following it has, I think. So with this, we are going to make a map. As you play, you can click on the skills and adjacent skills. You can unlock things that are adjacent to skills you've already unlocked. With generation of skills, with this genre in general, it's a balancing act between giving players variety, and we want to give them a lot of variety, but at the same time giving them character. The more variety you have inside a character, sort of the less meaningful the character is. And so that's a balancing act, and that's going to take a lot of tuning, but I'm very optimistic about this as a tool to provide that. I think the players will have distinct character, and yet there will be a lot of variety as to how they can play that. And one person will play it differently than another, and one player who knows what they're doing will play it differently depending on the game circumstances. This unique map, combined with the unique names, unique look, give people that sense of identity and ownership and personality to what they have. And I think that's going to, the fact that there's been any of that so far, which there has been, shows that as we begin nailing down that skill chart, I fully believe it's going to go through the roof, that people are going to feel very, have a very fond relationship with their different characters.
Thanks, Richard. Appreciate that very much. And on that note, what we have delivered so far, if you've played the game recently, you've seen is the ability for us to have now these skill chains that are attached to each of the elements, but that is going to evolve significantly in this next phase, even between now and our essentially, post alpha launch. So we will talk a little bit more about that in a second.
Thinking about game development and our general approach to how we've been building the game, like we take this approach that I've talked about before, where it's like building up layers of your onion. Like you're trying to prove that, hey, you can have 10 seconds of fun by clicking buttons. You can have 5 minutes of fun by playing a turn or two. You can have 10 minutes of fun by completing a match, so on and so forth. And so now we're getting to the phase where we have more and more proof points on, hey, these up to 10, 15, 20, even multiple hours now with tournaments. We have this proof that this is fun. People keep coming back. There's obviously still work to do there. We need to keep building out layers in the future. And the big layers that will be coming in the future months are these player progression systems. And these have sort of two types. One is just this sort of long-term base building, which we reference here, where, hey, as you're earning reputation, which is our rough equivalent of experience, you're on this path where you are both making progress, earning rewards, gaining new goals, so on and so forth, and just building that out so that we can move to the multi-week, multi-month sort of goal setting and play cycles. And similarly, to go along with that, like I think most games do now, we're going to be building out our seasonal approach, like what is being mixed up periodically to keep the experience bright and exciting and different and challenging, so that we're able to keep those strategy players who are looking to keep challenging themselves, while also not leaving behind the people who maybe don't need as much challenge. And so there's a lot of stuff we're going to be doing around progression systems, how we do our PvP tournament ranked systems and things like that, so that we'll be building towards these longer cycles of play over the next few months. And tournaments are a really critical portion of that for us. And this is something that we've been talking and building with Richard and Scaff for a while now, because I've worked on a lot of games that have many different approaches to play, improving skill and rewarding skill and all of that. And for us, the reason we've been so heavy on pushing tournaments is because we think that this is the correct system for us in the future. We're getting more proof points behind, hey, this is working, this is fun, people are enjoying it. It is bubbling up agents of high power and players of high skill towards these gold tournaments. And so we're just really excited about that, because I think a primary goal of PvP play is to have that demonstrable way to show off your skill while continuing to challenge yourself. And again, most games rely on a ladder system, which ladder systems often run into this problem where at the very end of the month, that's when your top 100 players in the world just need to be on their computer 100% of their time to stay in the top 100. And those sorts of things are where we're hoping our tournament system can get around that. So Richard, did you want to talk a little bit about what's so appealing about tournaments to you and why you think it fits Chaos Agents and what makes it awesome and fun for our players?
Yeah, sure. I think first of all, there is a language which we have to figure out how to overcome, because tournament sounds so in particular in the digital environment, it sounds high stress and super competitive. And I think here we're often using it in a different, a lighter sense, even though there will be high stress and competitive tournaments. I want people at all levels to feel comfortable joining in a tournament in the same way that all people in Fortnite feel comfortable jumping in. That's one of the whole reasons we're in this battle royale space, is because you can join those and you don't have an expectation to win. It's not like a MOBA where you'll drag down a team. It's not like a Hearthstone where you jump in casually, you'll just get smashed. Here, it's going to be something where you don't have as much expectation to win every time, because whatever, there's 60 or 80 people playing. And so the consequence of not doing as well is not as personal. The other thing we have, which is really interesting with regard to how people are going to engage with it, is that we are going to be putting a lot of the skill measurement onto the characters rather than the players. This is really important and is really fresh. It's a fresh area, because this allows you to play. If you're a pretty casual player and you happen to have a really good agent, you can play at a higher weight level than you otherwise might think you could. That's not something which happens in other games. And we want to enable that, where and it goes both ways. You could be a serious player who wants to do really well, but you've got this character that's a real challenge to play, and I don't want it to be dinging your personal rating by playing it in appropriate arenas for that character. And maybe you're good enough to actually raise its level up. More directly, in response to Jonathan's question about what excites me about tournaments, I'm a big fan of measuring excellence through tournaments rather than ladders, because ladders have so much of an intrinsic grind associated with them. If I am a fan of a paper game, I don't typically have a ladder which I'm climbing on. The reason they're there online is because they're just so easy to do. In a paper game world, an analog world, if I like playing and I like playing seriously, I'll go play a tournament. It doesn't have to be a high-stress tournament. Tournaments are just a way of people who love a game get together and play, and it doesn't have the grind associated with it. It is more of a game than a ladder, than competing on a ladder. You're not as punished for doing poorly. So when you go to that tournament, all you've lost if you lose is opportunity cost. You could have done something else, but you haven't gone backwards in your ratings or anything like that. So if you can structure your highest status events around tournaments, which are as inviting as possible, rather than around ladders, which you have to grind and qualify for, then everyone feels like if they've got a chance, they can jump in and they could do well. They might be able to enter the tournament of their dreams. They might be able to do well at it. But if they join it, just being there is an honor, and will be exciting. Yeah, tournaments in general are much more game friendly, casual friendly than ladders are, and so that's why I want to focus on it. And I also want to focus on this idea that the characters are giving you opportunities to play at many different levels without so it allows you to play both casually and seriously at the same time, which I think is important. You don't have to kick back and play and play poorly in order to get into a casual tournament, or play in an area which doesn't have any meaning to you. You can choose a character that is appropriate for whatever skill level you want to play at.
I'm excited to talk a little bit about a roadmap for the next few months. Again, caveat that happens with every roadmap you ever see is that some of these features will change, especially the further out we get. This is tentatively what we're planning and how we're thinking about it. So I want to walk through the features that are coming and some of the content that's coming to keep everybody apprised of what we're working towards. So let's start with the release coming out next week, the 1922 release. This has a lot of sort of web and out-of-game updates that we're excited about. The biggest things we're excited about in our out-of-game updates is we'll be building in a feature that makes automated agent roster. So rather than a manual spreadsheet, Mackie and I are updating, this will automatically pull from our back end and present to you a list of all of the agents, who's their broker, and also a lot of information we haven't exposed easily before, such as their skills and elements. So we're super excited about this feature. It should be a great quality of life feature for our audience. And we're excited to get it into your hands next week. Secondly, we're also bringing leaderboards back. We used to do leaderboards in our newsletter. It was a very manual process, and there would be a lot of problems, both in terms of timeliness of getting it, as well as sometimes we would run into inaccuracies because we missed something here and there. And so what we've gone and done is we've developed data-backed leaderboards. It's all data informed from our back end, so it's exactly what our back end knows your reputation to be. Probably the coolest thing about leaderboards, though, is that we've added in a bunch of additional pieces of information you didn't have access to in the past. And so we'll cover this more in the demo we're going to do shortly. And so you'll be able to dig in there, look at the leaderboards, and see all the cool data that we're going to put in front of you. Next up, we have our Popularium website. And so we've been periodically updating this over time. And the most exciting thing we're doing here is we're making our website through a bunch of blog-like features be an archive of a lot of the information we send and share to you. So things that we previously sent to you in the newsletters that might get lost to your spam filters, or just generally lost to time where you don't remember, oh, which of those newsletters had information about this feature. We've built out a blog feature for our website that's going to make it so that we have an archive of all of that information, and you'll be able to dig through it much easier than you can right now. And so we're super excited about this. Similarly, we spent a lot of this release focusing on bug fixes and performance issues. This is one of the big things that coming out of Gen Con, where we'd gotten much more stable. We want to continue that. And so we're very excited. A bunch of bug fixes and performance will be coming. Look for the patch notes coming out next week that'll list all the stuff that we've done here. And then on a content side, I mentioned blog posts and lores are a big thing. We're also going to start rolling out some of our new social channels. We're embarking down a path of getting better about making sure the information that we're sharing is federated across all the different channels, so that you as a player and you as a consumer of what's exciting and new happening in Chaos Agents, you can go to the channel that you like the most and still stay up to date. And so we're pretty excited about that. We'll also be dropping some new agents. You're going to see periodic new agents throughout all of these releases. And so that's 1922. Talking about 193, which we're targeting around October, we're pretty excited about the features here. And you'll see a little bit of this, a little bit of setup for this in the demo, where one of the big features we're working on is automating matches and tournaments even more. We want to get into a place where these are scheduled and you know when you need to join and you can plan ahead for your life, as well as still fire one-off matches and tournaments as people want and desire. And so we're going to be doing some engineering work around this that I'm pretty excited about to make them work smoother and easier for the community. The second major feature we're working on here is, again, mentioned earlier in this deck. We're really shifting our focus a little bit earlier in that funnel. We want to improve the new user onboarding experience and a lot of the missions that you're getting there. And so we're going to focus on this. You should see a lot of iteration of this throughout the coming month, month and a half. I expect we'll continue working on this probably up until retail release, ultimately, as we continue to focus on getting players in and understanding the complexity as well as the fun of the game. Third up is the thing I'm personally super excited about, is we want to bring in-game trade support to some of the web experiences we're going to be demoing in a little. As mentioned earlier, we have the agent roster that's coming online shortly, and so trades is the next sort of phase of that, where you'll be able to dig into that roster, find an agent you're excited about, propose a trade, and fulfill that right then and there. You won't need to go visit Trademaster anymore, which I know Mackie is pretty excited about. Next up, one of the most requested features we've gotten recently is people want a big battle map when they're playing the game. They want to be able to hit the M key or a key on their keyboard and bring up that drop screen map, but with the battle phase information on it dynamically moving around. I think the community came up with the name right there on the mega mini map or the mini mega map. And I think that that's exactly what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring that convenience, bring that sort of overhead view of you are this broker in the sky watching what's happening, and give you ways to fulfill that better and get more of that information in your head. Last up here, this is one of the things that we're excited about as well. We're calling it Skill Map V2. And Skill Map V2 with navigation is all about how we're marching towards that agent experience where you have more interplay and more interestingness in choosing which skills to spend your skill points on. And so we're excited about this. This is going to bring online what we've called skill classes. This is the biosculptor, the kineticist, this idea we've talked about where elements get grouped together into pairs, and then those are classes. And so your agent becomes a set of 3 classes, which equals 6 elements. So we're pretty jazzed about that. Coming content-wise there, we have more new agents coming. This will come with some new skills as well to go along with the skill map updates, and we'll be building even more missions that are focused around new users and the introductory experience. Talking a little bit about 194, we're pretty excited about this build as well, but again, it's further out, so things may change, features may come in, features may fall out. But we're going to talk about what our current plan is and what we're excited about. The biggest thing here is we're really excited about getting our Steam build launched. We'll probably have bits of people trying out the Steam build throughout October as we figure out more and more there, but we really want to roll it out to the whole alpha player base in this November timeframe. So this will be awesome. This will be a big fulfillment of a thing we've talked about for a while, and it'll help a lot with onboarding and new user intro because Steam is pretty ubiquitous. I think we all have accounts and appreciate the things that it is good at. Next up, this is like an architecture and performance one. We're really trying to move towards bigger bigger grand melees. We want to get to that 16 to 24 agents fighting against each other, and also starting to add in PvE objectives as well. So this will be a pretty exciting change for the game. We think it'll mix things up a lot. Imagine doubling how many agents are on the board. We'll definitely have balanced things hitting with this as well. After that, we've talked a bit about progression in the past. Progression is sort of as we're building the layers of our game, we focused on, hey, 1 minute of fun, 5 minutes of fun, 15 minutes of fun. The progression systems are really meant to handle that multi-day, multi-week, multi-month enjoyment of the game. And so what we're working towards is bringing what we're calling our brokerage, house buildings, and campaigns, seasonal campaigns, and then just general agent and recruitment progression to our player base. And so these are all sort of trying to fuel that long-term progression in the game. Some of these may change before we launch them. Again, look for more information as we get closer. Lastly, as far as major features, we're pretty excited because we want to bring character selection into the lobby experience. So you hit that lobby and you'll be able to change which agent you want to use and see them in glorious 3D, spin them around, see them animate. We're pretty excited about that. To go along with that, we're also planning to launch our emotes feature. This is a way for you to interact with other players on the battlefield in a quick and easy way, where you'll be able to send them little emotes as you're going along, you know, the sad, cryy faces and things like that. So we're going to get a version of that system in to sort of test, hey, is this fun? Is it fulfilling? Is it something we should do more effort around, or do we need a different social system in place? And then on the content side, probably the biggest thing here is we want to get more of the tutorial support in by this time. We'll continue to have new skills. We have a whole set of skill types called active skills, which we're excited about and we think will land in this time frame. And then we'll have new agents as well. And so that's our feature roadmap. Again, we're pretty excited about what is to come. Look for 1922 next week, and then 193 and 194 in the future. Again, just to bookend with the caveat, things change on roadmaps. So what we talk about here, we'll try and keep you apprised of as things fall in and fall out of our feature planning. Next up, we're going to do a quick demo of an upcoming release, which will be landing next week. We're super excited for this release because we've changed a couple things that we think are going to help the onboarding experience, and we're going to bring back a few features that we used to have that were really manual for us to support, and now they're supported in an automated way. The first thing that we have here is just our landing page. And the thing that we've changed in our landing page is how you join a match and how you start a match. So right now, when somebody has set up a match, instead of going through a bunch of drop downs and waiting for them to fill, we now have this much nicer UI, the Select a Match UI. So this has a public multiplayer match on the Vespersa match, and it shows 2 out of 8 players are in it already. And so you'll be able to quickly click something. It'll bring up your list of agents that are available for that, and you'll be able to join a match from there. The start match behavior hasn't changed much. It's still here. You just click start match, and you can choose a multiplayer or a single player match and kick it off to go. But we're pretty excited for the join match feature because it sets up some of the future things we want to do in terms of scheduling things like this Iron tournament down here. For the future, will show up and you'll be able to join there. So again, we're pretty excited about what we're doing with Join Match and what the future has to bring. I'm going to jump over to our next feature, which for those of you who have been with us a long time, you probably remember from our old weekly emails that we would send out, and that's leaderboards. And so we're super excited about leaderboards because leaderboards are now automated and data-driven and have a bunch more content in them. And so we have 3 different leaderboards we're going to launch with. We have a broker-based leaderboard to show you, hey, Space Cowboy has a ton of rep right now, and it shows average KOs, shards, rounds, things like that. Also, there's this little setting symbol when this feature launches where you'll be able to add in some other data points that you might be interested, like how many times it's gotten Brawl Master or Shard Master. So this is fully interactive. You can scroll up and down. You can sort things in different ways. And so we're just excited to have brought back the leaderboard feature and done it in an automated way so that poor Mackie and I aren't doing a bunch of manual work every week. The second leaderboard is an agent-based leaderboard, and so this is where you'll be able to see some of our top agents, how often they're used, how many KOs they have, all of these stats. Again, it's configurable. You can tweak the leaderboard to show you the information that you're most excited about and care about. And then lastly, we have our good friend, the Accords leaderboard. And so this is aggregating all of that information for all of our members of each Accord so they can check it out and say, hey, how is my Accord doing relative to the other Accords? So we're really excited about this. It's automated. It'll update automatically after you finish a match. And it shows a bunch of information that we previously were sharing. And now we have even more. So you want to know, hey, which agents are the best at shard collecting? You can check that out. You can sort. You can dig into this data and try and come up with informed opinions on agents and brokers and Accords. So we're super excited about leaderboards. Lastly, and this has to do a little bit with leaderboards as well, is we have our agent roster. Our agent roster has moved online here. And we're still working to get some of the assets in place, like there'll be a cool picture of Sarah here. But this is the agent that's on my account, which is Sarah Save Yourself, Soliloquy. And so she's here. And what we've done is we've automated this and pulled in a bunch of data as well so that you can break down every agent that's out there. And let's check out all of the other agents as well. And you can see, hey, Ebnis is the best agent right now at KOs. He's that 100th, he's the top percentile. He is the top agent for that. And so you're able to go through here, see every agent, and you can click into agent details as well. And agent details is a thing we're super excited about, beyond just the data and stats, which are super cool and interesting, and we think players are going to enjoy a ton. This is also the first time that you can easily get, hey, for my agent and for any other agent out there, what are the skills that they have and what do those skills do? So down here, we're going through the brain skills, the chaos skills, the dark skills. And so we're very excited about this feature as well because it's automated, and now you'll be able to do some of that sleuthing and digging and figure out, hey, is this agent on the bench? Is it something I want? Or, oh, should I make an offer to Lucha because I really want this agent? I think I can do better. Or it does something that I'm really excited about. So we're super jazzed about this feature. This will be coming out next week. And so we really hope that you can join us on the journey, give us feedback when these features launch so we can keep tweaking them. We know we have a lot of the information that people care about and we're presenting it in the way we think is best, but as soon as it gets in your hands, we really want to know what you think and what things we can improve. So this is the out-of-game experience that we've demoed here. So now I'm going to jump over to the web experience. So jumping over to our next demo, we've done a big refresh on our website. And one of the goals of our website refresh is not only keep content refreshed and interesting and show off new art and things like that, but we've been trying to get towards a place where the information we've sent to you in email or one-off on Discord, or we said in some of our questions and answer sessions, we're trying to build a central repository for that. And so not only have we gone and done some updates on just the base page, but what we've done is we've invested in a blog, sort of technology and lore, and we've tried to centralize that information on our website. So the blog is this area where we want to expose you to all of those past articles and reference points, and interesting links, like this is an article by Richard on his perspective on, hey, how tournaments and ranked play should work. We just want to have all of that stuff codified, everything from patch notes to articles by us on our dev diaries. We just need a place to archive that and centralize it so you're able to look it up in the future rather than having to dig through Discord or trying to remember which newsletter it is. We put it all here so that you're able to go in here and check out our content, read through it, link to it, point your friends at other items. So we're pretty excited about this as well. So we've added in a blog, which has a lot of these developer information things such as patch notes, but we've also built in more of our lore information as well to the lore page. So we've really built it out more so that a lot of that information that was previously hidden or held in PDFs or things like that is easier to access and dig through. And so we're very excited to be launching this website, also coming next week, to go along with the out-of-game experience. So there should be a lot of content for you to dig into, especially if you're a newer player and maybe missed something that we talked about months or even more than a year ago. We'll have those up here. We'll be adding more content as we go. And again, this is an early preview. We're still filling things in. We're still doing our copy editing, all of that stuff. But we just want to show it to you so that you can get excited about all the cool stuff that we are building here on the website and the out-of-game experience. And so that's it for our demo. Again, we're pretty excited to launch this next week. More information will be coming once we're super certain of the date. So we look forward to getting in here. And again, send us feedback as you're going through our new releases and our new features. So thank you so much.
So there's going to be your character's accomplishments, which are more along the lines of what people expect from a competitive game. Those may or may not be what you as a player are after. My character will win badges or ranks or trophies depending on how they've done, and they can win those even if they're playing in casual games. They'll have some sort of accumulation. One of the things I like to think about is that trophies are a really nice way to measure how well you do. Not all trophies are the same. This is the way many sports and games work. Just because you've got a bunch of local trophies doesn't mean they're not of any value. They're not the same though as winning a national trophy. Now, if you're not interested in any of that, then what I see, you presumably one likes the game or they're not involved, and so how do you encourage the game play? And that can be much more. That the accomplishments along those lines are, I would say, more mission-based and flatter. So play a few games and you're getting some points which you can use to customize your characters in some way, both the look of them. You can earn through casual play things like battle cries or emotes of your characters, and things which are associated with your launching area, like you've got ways to organize your set of agents, and it might include different cosmetic sort of upgrades, which you choose based on what you've earned in these games, but not earned in the sense of I have to win a big tournament in order to get stuff. Just playing is unlocking this way to customize your characters and your base. But playing particular things will change the nature of the trophies and accolades that a particular character will get. And if you trade that character away or sell it, whatever is assigned to that character will go with it. But other things that you've earned on the more casual side would stay with you. It is possible also I misunderstood your question.
I think the quick answer to the question is that there will be plenty of competitive tournaments. So like if you want consistent competitive play, just go join the competitive tournaments. You can even take lower level characters and build them up to where they're qualifying for competitive tournaments. So like the particular level of the tournament doesn't necessarily matter so much. Like there'll always be something for you to do if you're a skilled player and you're attempting to gain value out of that. And then as Richard said, like that's on the agents in terms of your account. There's lots of things that accumulate over time, like how many agents you sell and how many emotes you earn and that sort of thing.
I guess certainly where I was,
the intent is not to. Oh, say go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, The question that I'm trying to ask is a question that one of my friends asks every time we sit down to play a board game that we haven't played before, which is, how do I win the game? And like, I don't have a clear answer like to that right now. It sounds like leaderboards are driving the majority of that. So like, if I'm in the first place on some leaderboard, I could consider myself the winner, I guess.
No,
Yeah, we're definitely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I think we're always talking about this because this is the thing that skill players demand is how do I prove I'm the best? And so we do like the tournament system that we're leveraging right now, where the goal is that, hey, there's something like a world championship at the end of the year where the highest skill players and high skill, which again has a slightly different definition in our context perhaps, but the goal is that the high skill players with the high power agents through the course of many tournaments are able to prove, hey, we're high skill players with high power agents. And those people are making it into the world championships that then is crowning a world champion. And I would think this sort of akin to, I'll pick on March Madness, like March Madness. Yes, they're awesome Cinderella stories and people get ahead of maybe where they thought they were supposed to have gotten. But most of the time the tournament ends up with the top tier teams competing against each other, and that works out well. And so again, the excitement of a tournament is that you can have disruptions in there and you can end up with low likelihood things happening, and that's fun and awesome and exciting for players. But over the course of many tournaments, you sort of push a lot of that randomness down, you subdue it, and you end up saying, hey, by the time you've made it through 7 layers of tournaments, what have you, like there's a very high likelihood you have both a good agent and a good skilled player.
Very, very quickly, I would think in terms of like the English Premier Football, the English football season system where you have like 7 or 8 different leagues. Within a league, people take it very seriously and they have rivalries and they care a lot. And they care a lot about winning a league. But somebody that wins League 4 is not, hasn't won the top level, which would be winning the Premier League. And I'm pretty certain, based upon what Shamaniac and Draknab and Richard and other people have said in the past, that the goal is that you be able to really seriously engage with the game and play competitively, even if you're not in the Premier League in terms of either the quality of your agent or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's very very relevant. One of the things that I definitely want to see is I feel like a player like myself is underrepresented in lots of games. I like to play seriously, and I don't like to be sort of stuck in the baby pool. But at the same time, I don't want to grind all the time, and I like to play around with my strategies and such. And I want to see a game which supports serious play, but gives me room to also explore the game without punishing my position, and to that end, whatever the world championship ends up being, you're going to have to qualify for that. But that doesn't mean that there's not going to be sort of tournaments which are saying anybody can enter these tournaments, so they give you a platinum trophy. And there's no lower bound, which means I can join even if I've got no ranking whatsoever and try my hand at it. And I think giving a range of opportunities for people who like to play seriously, but at the same time don't want to be dedicating their life to a position on the ladder, that there's a place for that.
That's Ragnar, I see you unmuting, so I'll let you go first. I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping, given that we're...
Yeah, I just wanted to housekeep us as well, so you go ahead.
Okay, great. So in terms of housekeeping, I will ask a very quick question that's very easy, and I know that Richard and Scap are going to love talking about this for a few. What we will do is we'll officially go for about 5 to 10 more minutes. I'll ask this next question, and we have a backlog of about 6 or 7 questions from before and a few over here in the chat. Whenever we want to break today, we will make sure that Richard and Scap both record the answers, and we will make those available next week also. So we will cover all the questions. that were asked. But while I tee up the next one, Richard and Scav, one of the questions was about, what are the thoughts on letting people wager on matches? So there you go. It's one of your favorite topics.
Yeah, that was planned from the beginning before even the specifics of the game were done. So our thoughts are, to the greatest extent that we can do that, we want to do that. Game, in a lot of ways, is made for spectators to have a good time and to wager actively on it. Now, what those wagers are, obviously, there's a lot of details that need to be worked out. But I think more and more we want more tools for spectators. I don't know that this is on the feature list, but certainly it was, pre-design, making spectation really a major part of the game. Should aid in the wagering.
Yeah, spectation was front and center in the core concepts, and part of what really drives the interest there. I wanted to see a game developed around that, which naturally would end up being some sort of wagering, which was available not only to people who are just watching the game, but also to people who are playing the game, since there is time for some people, and possibly people who have played the game but got knocked out still want to see how things turn out. I think there's a lot of sort of fun gameplay that can be generated just from this chaotic system.
Yeah, I mean, people were excited about the emotes before. It sort of fits in with that. There's enough time for even old people and slow typers to emote, wager, etc., on the resolution phase.
I can say for a fact that I know, as I mentioned in the chat, Richard and Scav want to have the spectation and wagering features yesterday, but obviously we had to focus on making the gameplay fun first. But it's very much on this thing, and we just have so much more than we can do. But if I had my way, we would have some kind of spectation and wagering in place before the end of the year. But that is a dream that we will see if it comes true. But it is definitely on the and we haven't talked a lot about what do you do after you get knocked out, right? I mean, obviously you want to play another match, you should be able to do that, but you should have some stake, literally in the existing match that you're in. So hopefully we'll be able to build some very interesting things in there. I'll set this as the provisional second to last question for today, and if people want to keep going after two, then we can keep going. But this is a very interesting one. This is, I believe, from Moxie, which is not particularly specific, but I'd love to hear talk about ideal randomness. I really enjoy how pro-random the Chaos Agents team is, and how would enjoy hearing folks talk about their approach to randomness in gaming. For example, what signals do you watch for in terms of monitoring to random? Are there any aspects of the game you should believe should be all agency and no randomness? Then what are the guardrails to balance randomness against progression? Are there other games you look for to as perfectly random? Personally, I'm a huge Yahtzee fan. It really puts into perspective that Chaos Agents is basically synonymous with randomness agency. So yeah, I know, Richard, this is a favorite topic of yours, which is randomness in games. So if you wanted to touch upon this a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Randomness is highly underrated in gameplay for not only the interesting variety and fun it can generate, but also just the skill tests it gives. The skill tests you get from random opportunities and random threats are not really appreciated as much as they should be for gameplay in general. So you get people who are allergic to randomness because it undermines their sense of strategy, but that leaves a certain category of strategy entirely by the side of the road. So yeah, we tend to be very pro randomness, but what we look for is that, so a game with an immense amount of randomness will typically have skill, and the real question is how long do you have to play before that skill rises to the top? And so if the game goes to a place where there's a lot of skill to play, but you have to play for 1,000 hours to demonstrate the fact that you're in the 90th percentile of play, that's too much randomness. But at the same time, if you're playing the game and you're in the 90th percent and you're in the top 10% every single time, that's not enough. What we will be and one big thing with randomness is, as much as possible, we like to make the underlying mechanics understandable. As much as possible, we don't want to have it be black box randomness. So what that means is I don't want people to be sitting down and clicking on their elements and wondering if they're never going to get another element in this category because they've already got 3, or that we tend to give them another element because we want to see this happen. I want players to sit down and see the randomness, and they may not always understand what's going on, so it's effectively a black box. But the underlying mechanics, if they're interested and look into it, are simple and as transparent as possible. I don't like hidden rules about this has happened twice in a row, so now this won't happen. I want that all to be up front, because while I do like randomness in my games, I also want people to understand it, because I think that's a big part of being able to play around it and to enjoy it.
What a great answer. And we'll make this the official last one, unless folks want a couple more after this, and we will, plan to wrap things up. And this is another really good one. Richard, we've seen the rise and fall of, I don't know if it's a fall, but it's definitely, not as much as pre-COVID, of Keyforge. We've seen the hype around SoulForge, and now as part of the private community for Popularium, we see the chaos agents on the rise. Of these 3 games, specifically, how much of your vision for these products is based around the algorithmic or procedurally generated content within the game? On the other hand, how much is world building and lore based? And what would you say pairs well, or where is the balance between algorithmically generated game components, pieces, content, and story building?
I root myself pretty firmly in mechanics, and so I like the flavor. I like a world with a rich flavor, but on the other hand, I like to build the games from a mechanical perspective and make sure that is the foundation. That said, there is a surprising the notion of having unique elements lends itself to story building and world building in a surprisingly strong way, and I think that's really well illustrated. And this was something which I didn't anticipate at first, but when I was building Keyforge, I noticed something about the way I was going about building the houses. So the houses are analogous to colors in Magic. Now, in Magic and other games with sort of suit-based construction, it's very important that your vision or the strengths of a particular color be viewed too carefully. So that is, if you're sloppy with your direct damage, using Magic as the illustration, then direct damage will no longer be associated with a particular color, will just sort of wash out among all the other colors. And that's because if you put in into say blue, you have some direct damage. People have control over that. And so when they go into a tournament, they'll run into, if that's something desirable, when they're playing against blue, blue will just have as much direct damage as everybody else. They'll just choose the direct damage cards. Now, so the idea of making just a little bit of direct damage doesn't really work so well in Magic, but in Keyforge, I was able to craft houses that had much more personality in the sense that I understand it in stories and things like that. For example, you could have a house which had all little creatures, but it did have a few big creatures, and it didn't become the house of big creatures because that's what people wanted to play, because they were stuck with what they were dealt. And so what you had was a house that developed this personality of it's generally small, but it sometimes has some surprises. That sort of nuance is something you can explore in games with unique decks, unique assets for the players. And so in a similar way with Chaos Agents, I expect the explorers will have this set of abilities, which will, as I mentioned earlier, support scouting and movement and finding, getting crystals and so forth. But that doesn't mean that there won't be some surprises in that house, which give them a lot of damage under the right circumstances, or are really interesting weapons, or really good long-range weapons. Those things can be added and not undermine the character of the game as a whole. And to me, that's really exciting, because that makes the career path more like stories in real life, where you can have these nuances within them.
It's awesome. I think that's a great note to end on, unless, Richard, do you want to take one more, or do you want to end on that note?
I'm happy to take another.
Okay, let's do one more. That's the encore.
After all, it's really early for me. It's late for me.
Well, that's true. That is true. We will do an encore here for folks here. Okay. You know what I'll do is I will just give you a couple of things together, so you can just explore those topics as you see fit. So the first question there is, when creating Chaos Agents, what kind of audience do you have in mind? Board gamers, for example, looking for a digital experience. Card gamers looking to transition to more digital games. Existing digital gamers looking for a different, slower set of mechanics. And then with that, what games? I mean, we know Keyforge or highlights from other works have influenced that thinking. So that's one, which is what kind of audience do you have in mind, and then what were you influenced by? And then the other side, which goes, I think, with that, is what are some of the features, especially the ones that you haven't seen explored in your games before, are you most interested to see players experience? Where do you think people will end up spending most of their time? So we will end on that note.
Okay, well, that's a broad set of questions.
A meaty one, yes. So just we will just keep recording till you talk, and then we will wrap up.
The audience, I think I always have in mind. I guess not always, but generally have in mind an audience which where you can engage with the game casually and engage with it seriously and still play with each other and have fun. And so, which is one of the reasons luck is a really good tool to get it into that area. But you mentioned board gamers versus digital gamers, which I think is a really interesting way to look at it. Since the 90s, I have been really interested in what games lie between the digital experience and the board game experience, the analog experience. And this, I remember vividly an evening where I played something, it was a long time ago, so it might have been something like Quake. And then after I was finished with that, I played online Scrabble. And I was just, I love both digital games and analog games, but I was just floored by how completely different the experience was and how little game there was in between those. So it seems like there should be a continuum which connects Scrabble to Quake, but there wasn't. There was a rift. And so I've been thinking about that area a lot in my career, and one of the things which I found a very useful tool in getting into that between area is the idea of the auto battle. The auto battler feels like it gives you what, as an analog game player, I like as far as being able to sit back, not feel too rushed, but still have interesting decisions and not feel like the game is dragging. And yet it doesn't feel like you should be playing it around a table because the computer is too integral to how it operates. It's for somebody who's interested in this this area between traditional digital and traditional analog. I think it's really rich, and so it's my hope that is attractive to people on both sides of that divide, and so that's where I'm looking to place the game, so I answered one question. Was there were
Yeah,
like
the
six
follow-up,
more.
there was the features that you are most excited for people to experience and where you think people will spend most of their time.
Yeah, I'm very excited by this concept of unique skill tree. I mean, obviously, everybody who's talked to me for 5 minutes knows I'm excited about unique assets, characters, decks being given to a player. But in particular, the skill map, and it's because to me, I have sat down so many times to role-playing games or MOBAs or things like that, and I find it just so exciting looking and seeing what the capabilities of my characters are and thinking about exploring that. And this being able to get a random one and the opportunity to sort of explore it again and again and get different games each time, I think is really exciting. One of the things I'm looking forward to most in seeing how this develops while moving to more firmly into the battle royale territory, that is a fancy way of saying getting more people, I guess, playing, is that in analog games, having it so that a game is interactive and doesn't get entirely dominated by politics is challenging. It's not impossible. You've got games like poker, for example, which are very interactive and generally politics does not dominate play. But this and so this so the idea of making it an auto battler and yet have lots and lots of people involved removes or greatly diminishes this opportunity to make the game entirely political. And here, political, what I'm meaning is that you don't feel like you're being picked on by everybody else. If it's certainly one of the things where with Battle Royale in general, I was kind of surprised how that wasn't as much of an issue that I would have expected. That I would join a game and just feel like I was being picked on. But Clearly, though, if in some of these free-for-alls, if people are playing them seriously and you know who's going in, that will be how it works. But with Auto Battle, you get to sidestep that all and make it so that you can have a very, very interactive experience and yet not too much sense of politics.
Fantastic. And look at that. We are exactly 1 hour over, which I think is a great place to stop. We will, Richard, if you want to hang out here on Discord, we can keep chatting. I will officially end the recording here. And just thank everyone again for your support, for your time. What a great time, what a great way to spend a Friday evening here with you all. And again, as I said, can't wait for the next release to get to you and see all the discussions starting up against around who's better than whom. We can officially have tier lists now, which is something that I'm really excited to get going on. I love tier lists and so much more. So again, thank you everyone, and looking forward to many more fun matches in the near future. Thanks all. Have a great weekend.